You are looking at someone who didn't just get out of the shower, but also someone who today passed their CDL Class A learner's permit test. Now, that is a written test. Now, I'm not looking for congratulations or anything like that, because basically all it really is studying for another test, just like many other things. And yes, it's an accomplishment, but at the same time, the real test is going to be when I finally get behind the truck and get to do the real driver's test, which is probably about 3 weeks away. And that's a lot. This is going to be a lot of training. I mean, let me start over again, starting today. Got it this morning. Decided last night, since I literally stared at the screen for hours on end, doing practice test after practice test. I went to CDL.com and did all of their air brake tests, all of their combination tests, and then went to the general purpose test and got like the third or fourth question wrong. And I said, yikes. Okay, maybe my brain is just fried, because I was literally staring at the screen for so long that my eyes were getting dry. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take out my contact lenses, which I normally don't do. I'm usually bad about sleeping in them. I need to get better about that. But I took them off and went to bed a little bit earlier than I normally would. I got about, normally if I don't really do a whole lot, I can do fine with like 5 or 6 hours of sleep, if that. But if I'm going to be trying to stay awake and pay attention in like a class where I'm not doing a whole lot all day, then that will be one of those things that I need to have a full 7, if not more, or close to it. Like the night before last, I went to sleep and I only got 5.5 hours yesterday, which is, I mean, I did fine today, yesterday, but still it's, I know myself well enough to know that, usually about 5 to 6 hours is good for me for about 17, 18 hours, something like that. But I do start to get a little drowsy by the end of that time. But I went to bed last night and got about 7.5 hours. And then I got up this morning, got up and out the door kind of early. I drove to the place that I'm studying for I'm doing all the written stuff right now. And I got there a little bit early, but I realized that my contacts were a little dry. I could still see just fine out of them, but I went around the corner to Walmart, which was not even a quarter mile away. Got some dry eyes, re-wetting type drops that are good for dry eyes. And surprisingly, it didn't help me all day. Probably because I've been staring at the screen. I needed to blink a lot more than I did. My eyes, I think, got used to being open and dry or something. I'm not an eye person, as I'm sure you can imagine, but or a doctor or whatever. But yeah. So anyway, my eyes have been dry all day, and I went and took the course today, and I started to wonder, because all the material we were doing today, day 4, was all related to just how to do route planning, and we learned about human trafficking, and we learned about, safe defensive driving and stuff like that. We learned about a whole bunch of different things, and we took a whole bunch of different quizzes and learned modules and watched some videos and stuff like that. It was a good day. But I tell you, by the end of it, it was nice to get away from the air brake combination and general knowledge, but at the same time, I missed it, because at the end of today, we were headed off to get our tests, to do our written tests. And it was about 30 miles to the place that you get your license written test done. And there was almost nobody there. So I went in there and I signed in. Then I got my number, and I was only holding it in my hand for about 2 minutes before I went over there. So it's very much not a Zootopia type experience, if you're familiar with that movie. And the guy was very nice. I mean, I greeted him with a smile and a laugh. And I asked if, told him what I was there to do is take my Class A, permit test. And he said, okay, we'll start with your eye exam. And I said, okay, here we go. And I laughingly said, well, let me put the eye drops in real quick. And I told him I basically been looking at the computer, studying like crazy the past few days. And he laughed and said, "Oh, take your time. That's fine." So I did that and put my eyes in there. Of course, the drops had caused the eyes to kind of react a little bit. So I was like doing this number and I was clearing them. And as soon as they were clear, I was like, okay, read the numbers, and, passed fine. One of my eyes, when I went to the DOT, the fitness check was 2015 and the other one was 2020. So, I was fine. Anyway, so he did the eye test, and then I asked if he needed the physical, and he says, no, just because, if you fail, then you're going to have to show it again the next time. I said, I'm not going to fail. Part of my mentality on that was, if you tell yourself to fail, you're going to fail. And I had gotten myself in the mode of, I'm going to pass. I had done so many practice tests. I've done so many things that basically today I was still thinking about it. And even on my drive to the, to be tested, I was listening in the car to a YouTube video, not watching it, but I was listening to it in the car that basically just repeats over and over again different CDL questions, because it was a lot of long, just driving down the interstate, and it was on back roads just for a long period of time. And, I would not pay attention to it if I needed to concentrate on making a turn or something like that. But I was listening to the questions, and it would ask something, and then I would answer it. And I figured that most of them I got right. Probably I could probably count on one hand how many out of maybe 60 or 70 questions that I heard it ask me that I got wrong. And and that was including, by the way, if I was making a turn and I came in and was like listening to answers and like, okay, I'm assuming that the question was probably this. So sometimes I get that wrong. So that's including those kinds of questions. So it's not exactly fair. But anyway, so I got there, got to the DMV, and when he sent me in to take my test, he said, go on in there, and you're going to be on computer 5. And I sat down, and now I know there is a webcam in the center of the screen, but I also know that there was a big, huge mirror right there. And I'm assuming that is there because there's someone that will occasionally monitor you, if not sit behind it, watching everybody testing in there. Anyway, so it started me with air brakes, and I aced it. No questions wrong. Combination test, aced it. No questions wrong. Started the general knowledge, which is 50 questions. I think the other two were 25. I think it was 20 to 25. I think it was 25. Regardless, got them all right. Then when it came to the 50 test general knowledge, now keep in mind, I walked in the door about 1 hour before closing. So I got there, and it started the process, and I started to take the test, and got the first question right. Then I got the second one wrong, and I literally dropped my mouth because I was like, how did I get that one wrong? Because it seemed very easy. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, the biggest catches I was thinking about is the word not, and anything that had like a multiple right or multiple wrong answer, or tricksy wording, anything like that. So I thought about it, and I said, all right, well, maybe I just misread, because I'm pretty confident. And so I did the next question and got it wrong. So test question 1, I got right. Questions 2 and 3, I got wrong. And by this point, I literally got big eyes and turned my head at the screen. I'm like, oh no. I've already missed 2 in the first 3 questions. So I said, okay, I'm going to make sure that I read the questions completely clear. I mean, because I thought I did that just then. I'm like, all right, well, maybe I just misread. So I said, I'm going to read this one and just go a little slower, just like on the road. You go a little slower if in doubt. So I did question 4. It was formatted the same way as one that I knew. So I was like, oh, that's easy. And then I went to question 5, and I looked at it, and I was like, okay. Looked at it, and I read the question. I said, okay, well, and went through the answers. I said, okay, well, it's got to be this one. And I got it wrong. Now, this time I had read the question twice. I had looked at all the answers and very clearly said to myself, that is the right answer. And then I chose it. Wasn't a trick question or anything. I don't remember what it was. But I remember at that point saying, in the first 5 questions, I've missed 3. I'm not missing any more. I said, at this point, what I'm going to do is as soon as it comes up, I'm not going to look at the answers. I'm going to read the question slowly. I'm going to read it again slowly. I'm going to say in my mind what the answer is. And at that point, I will go looking down through each answer, and I will look at each answer, and I will either say yes or no to each one. And if there's a discrepancy in my mind as to which is the correct answer, then at that point, I will analyze it by rereading the question. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. Before I moved on, I kind of paused and looked at it, and I quite literally did this. And at that point, I kind of got my mindset in where I said, I'm not going to miss any more. That is my plan. Read the question slowly, read it again slowly, tell myself what the answer is. Then I will go through each answer and determine if it's right or if it's wrong. And if I feel like there's multiple correct answers, then what I'll do is I will read the question again and then pick the best answer. Now, there was 2 or 3 questions that I honestly didn't know. And I guessed based on educated guesses and got every one of those correct. And I looked at it, and I remember as I clicked the button, I was like, and then I was like, oh, good. There's the green letters that say correct. Now, when you don't get it right, it pops up red and it says wrong. And of course, it's right over the next question. I'm looking at it saying, oh, yikes. So when I finally, I got like 30 more questions, down the way. And then finally, I came across one that I stopped and looked at. And it's one that was formatted almost the exact same way as another question that we talked about, and I've seen in multiple CDL questions. And that is, if you're familiar with CDL, the question was, if you basically start to pull off in a truck onto the shoulder, and you suddenly don't need to go off of the shoulder, and you don't need to, you need to go back onto the road, what do you do? It didn't say anything about there's a wall or there's a pillar or there's any hazards or a car or anything like that. It just said, if you start to go into the shoulder and realize that you didn't need to do that afterwards, what is the correct way for getting back onto the road? In the training that I took, it said you come to a complete stop in the shoulder, you signal, and then when it's safe, you move into traffic. And the reason being, and the way that they explained it, is because if you start to go into the shoulder, cars are going to pass by you. They're going to fly past you. And so if you start to come back over, you could end up hitting somebody that's in your blind spot. So you don't do that. Well, the answers were start to go into the, as soon as you realize you need to go back on, the first one was signal and whip back into traffic. The second one was stay on the shoulder until you get to the end of the shoulder at the next exit, and then enter at the exit if it is safe to do so, or something like that. And the third one was signal and gradually move back into traffic. And at that point I said, none of those answers seem right to me. So I reread the question and said, it doesn't have the word not in there. It doesn't say which is the worst answer or the incorrect. It didn't say any of that stuff. It was quite literally asking for the correct answer. And I'm like, there is no right answer. So what I chose is what seemed the safest option to me. And the safest option was not to whip back into traffic, was not to drive in the shoulder however many miles it could be until you get to the exit ramp and then re-enter. It was not, it was also not signaling and going right back into traffic. But that was the one that at least said safely. It at least said or slowly is what I think the wording was. So I looked at it and said, that's got to be the one that they're looking for. Because I can't imagine, sometimes some places in between big cities, it could be miles that you would be driving on the shoulder if looking for the next exit. I mean, it could literally be miles. You could go onto a bridge by then. So you have to get back into the road. And I said, whipping out into the road would not be the safe way to do it. If you gradually did it, that seems to me to be the safe way. I remember looking at the question over and over again, looking at the wording, staring at every single word, saying, is there a word that seems tricksy, seems weird? But no. So I said the gradual. And when the words popped up red, wrong, incorrect, I dropped my mouth. It was just like the third question where I literally dropped my mouth. The first one, I kind of did this number. I was like, Maybe I just misread it, gave myself the benefit of the doubt. Second question I got wrong. I kind of, looked at the screen, and at this point I was surprised because I got 2 wrong in a row. And I was like, I turned my head kind of like a confused dog. I was like, huh? When I got the third one wrong, my eyes were big, my mouth dropped. And that's when I decided to regain my focus by putting my hands over my mouth, my eyes and stuff, and just said, block out everything, refocus, let's do this. This time, I can't say I was surprised because there really was no right answer. But what I was surprised at is that the correct answer, according to the test, was to signal and whip back into traffic. Whip back into traffic. Now, I don't think it said the word whip, but I think it was something like quickly get back in the traffic lane, or it was like, it didn't say jerk the wheel or something like that, but I forgot the wording, but it was something like, quickly, get back in there. So when I saw that one, my eyes got big and my mouth dropped and I stared at it. And I looked at that answer thinking to myself, what could I have gotten wrong? Is there one word that's wrong? I even looked at it and said, is there punctuation? There was only one thing at the end of the letter. It was a period. So I was like, couldn't be that. I have no idea what that question was about. And I said to myself, I hope that at this point, there's more than 20 questions, because if not, then that's it. I'm basically, going to be at 80%. If it's 20 questions or less, I'm at the borderline pass. But at that point, I was already in my 30s questions. But I remember looking at that and thinking for a split second, before I looked at the number on there and saw that I was in 30 something, I was like, okay. From there, I missed no more. So I missed 4. And here's what I'll say to that. If I had seen the answers, whatever those were, if I had seen it in a practice thing, I know I would have gotten it, because I studied those things like crazy. And one of the things that I did was, if I took a test, I always retook it until I got all the answers right. And I wouldn't just do it again instantly. I did that for the first, couple of days. But the last day, I wouldn't take the same test back to back. I would only take it and then take another one and then come back. That way I had to rethink the questions. I couldn't just say, fly through this. And if I got it wrong, I would do that. So those questions, I don't remember the formatting of some of them. I don't remember the exact wording of some of them, but I remember looking at it and saying, this is similar to some of the questions I know. I wonder if they changed or if the wording is a little bit different than what they trained us in, but it did not seem right to me. Now, that's not to say that, you're going to miss some. You're going to get some questions wrong. Absolutely. I get it. And I'm not beating myself up because, hey, I passed the thing. And now I get to go to, I will do more training on the next, my 5th computer day, where we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about? It's going to be sexual harassment and equality, discrimination rather, and stuff like that. So hiring practices is going to be information on what questions we need to ask when we're being hired, what questions we need to, what catches, that kind of thing, things to protect ourselves when we are going to apply for jobs. So there's going to be that, and then we go to the yard. So next week I will be going to the yard and spending 15 days there, which is hopefully going to be drilled into my head at that point, where over and over again, practice, do the inspections in driving and techniques. But so the big question that I will have is, that you might be asking, is when I get to the yard, and you're probably not asking this because it's not even been something that's we thought about, is will I be studying manual or will I be studying automatic? I will be studying manual. My first car over 30 years ago was a manual transmission. I currently drive a manual transmission, love manual transmissions. And I do know that driving a big rig tractor trailer, on a manual is different. I know you can have, the wheels lock on you if you go into, you're a higher gear. And it takes perhaps an extra step to perhaps slow it down. but I also know you have more control going down hills and stuff. I mean, I know you can downshift with your automatic too. And I also know that a lot of fleets are changing over to automatics because they are better on gas mileage. And that kind of thing. But, hey, I'd rather have that skill because I'm used to driving them. And I don't know if it's good for my manual transmission here. I drive a 6-speed, but I don't know if it's good for it or not. But I've been practicing the double clutch and, as I've been shifting gears. So, and I think I've only actually ground the gears once, and it was very brief. And I looked at it and said, yikes. But at the same time, hey, learning. And I was trying to develop muscle memory. So one of the things that I was trying to get in the habit of: first clutch as I move my hand, second clutch as I push my hand into the next position. So if I went clutch, clutch. And then also another thing is, in my car, I press the clutch all the way down to the floor, which you're not supposed to do in driving a manual. You're supposed to only push it down a couple of inches and go like this and just pop it down a couple of inches. Because if you go all the way down, then it's, more of a braking thing and like you're slowing down, or at least that's my understanding. That was covered, I think, one of the days. I think it was 2 days ago. We discussed it. I think, and I'm going to ask that when we get to the yard. Obviously, when I get behind the wheel, I'm going to ask him, is that right that you put it in there and it's kind of a braking effect as opposed to a full-fledged clutch? Because I remember they said there was a reason, and I think that's it, but you might know otherwise. Okay, rambled on enough. I'm going to enjoy myself tonight because basically as I've been going to the classes, as soon as I get out of it, I come home, usually grab something to eat, and I'll end up, taking a shower and stuff like that. And then late in the evening or later in the evening after I do studying or before I study or something like that, I'll do one of these logs. And tonight I got home, I was with the family, and then I just, took a shower and decided to come in here and record. So it's like, 11:46 p.m. And on days that I go to class, I get up at 6:30. So it, set the alarm for 6:30, and I'll be at less than 7 hours right now. So there you go. But that's pretty much everything for my report. I got the Class A permit, and I'm happy because I don't want to say flush, instantly have everything leave my mind, because there's a lot of things that I'm going to be thinking about, especially when we get to the yard. But at least the whole overall test is going to be, not on my mind, which is good. So yeah, that part's over. But the main thing is, the as long as you study and don't become complacent, like I think I said this last night, as long as you don't get complacent and just kind of say, oh yeah, I'm going to be fine, I don't need to read these questions, I'm not going to whatever else, you're going to be fine. As long as you study, as long as you know the material, you don't need to kill yourself. You're going to second guess yourself many times over. You're going to probably not think about everything. Now, the biggest frustration, I'll be honest with you, the biggest frustration I've had is that I'm like 20 plus years older than everybody else in the class that I'm taking this with. And we're part of a Zoom class, and there's me and there's 5 other people in there. There's one person that's always quiet. He's sitting in the back to the right. And then there's 2 people to my right and 2 people to my left. So there's actually 3 people to my right, including the quiet guy in the back. And there are 2 people on the right, and then 2 people on the left. And I tell you, there's a lot of chatter constantly. One guy jumps up and he keeps showing people his phone because he's looking at Instagram and looking at videos of trucks and stuff like that. And then he jumps up and wants to show everybody, and they'll be talking loud, and I'm just trying to watch the class. So I've actually had to turn on captions, the live captions in Zoom to read what they've been saying, just trying to tune out everything. Cause here's the thing. If we collectively were taking a test together or collectively doing quizzes together, then it'd be different. But this is all on me. It was all on me to do the test today. It was not a team effort. It was just me. I wanted to make sure I was prepared. So whenever we would do our modules and our quizzes and stuff like that, having the entire class decide that they're going to do it together It was like literally I'm putting my hands over my ears looking at this because there was a lot allowed. But you know what? We'll see. We'll see who passed and who didn't pass the test. I would like to hope that everybody would pass it, because if you failed it, you have to wait a full business day before you can take it again. That could end up messing up with some of the people who would go to the yard on day 6. And today was day 4, so could end up messing that process up. So we'll see who goes there and who doesn't. But yeah, so we shall see. But yeah, I was very frustrated by the chatter. I wanted to be able to concentrate on Andre and what he was saying, but I'm not going to just be the person that yells out, "Come on, guys, shut up," or anything like that, because that's just going to, disrupt the class. It's going to piss everybody off or whatever. And I thought literally about grabbing my laptop because the frame rate's kind of low on these Chromebooks, and it's very slow to move around on the screen. So I brought my own Alienware, my old school Alienware laptop, and I think some of it was just internet, slowing because I would see the person talk, and then about a second or two later I'd hear the sound sometimes. But that was mainly if he was playing a video or something. But hey, I liked having my laptop there a lot more because it was a lot better experience. It felt better when you're using everything. It was faster for sure. But yeah, I thought about grabbing the laptop and going into another room for some of the tests. But again, don't be such a square, man. There's some Gen X language for you, for all my fellow Gen Xers out there. If there's even anybody watching this, I'm doing the entire log series here before I'm uploading any video or even forming this channel. So I have not at this point in time, as of the time that I'm recording this, figured out what I want to call this channel, what I'm going to do, how long I'm going to do it, what my plan is. I don't know. I'm just recording these right now. I haven't seen anybody kind of do this online, where they've kind of talked about every single day in the quizzes, in the what the CDL training is like every day. What I will say is that 160 truck driving school academy has been very good so far. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I think that they give you the tools to succeed. But like anything else in the world, they can give you the tools, but it's still on you. You have to learn how to use the tools. You have to do the work. You do that, you're going to be fine. But and I did the work, and I ended up being fine today, which is good. Part of it's probably my mentality of I'm going to do it. Failure is not an option. Just like when I get to the yard, I'm going to have 15 days. I'm going to square that up because I know it's not going to be perfect. I know there's going to be a learning curve. I know it's going to be different. But I think I'm going to have it a little bit easier than the people in the class that have never driven a stick. There's only me and one other person in this class that's driven a stick. And the other person is the 19-year-old guy that's the quiet guy that sits in the back. He drives a stick shift. So he actually knows how to drive a stick. Everyone else in the class, we've talked about it before, talked about manual transmissions versus auto, who's going to be on what, because this particular school has three manuals and the rest of them are autos. Well, there's going to be some competition then, because out of the 6 of us, 4 of us are interested in manual transmission. So we might end up having to double up a little bit. I hope not, because I don't want to end up fighting for that. And I talked to the Reggie, the branch manager, and he said what normally happens is people will say, I want to learn manual. And then they get behind the wheel and they say, oh, this is too much, especially if they've never driven a manual before. And even many people that have driven a manual say, oh no, they're not into it. They don't like, nope, forget this. But I'm going to be a manual guy. I'm going to definitely do that. I like the idea of driving a stick. And I want to at least have that skill set because I like driving a stick. In general, driving a manual transmission is awesome. Like I said, been driving a stick for, my first car was a stick over 30 years ago. So I have fond memories of that little car. Actually, that car is the same make and model as my current car. It's just that was a 4-speed, mine's a 6-speed, and that one was a lot older. So there you go. All right, that's enough. I've been talking to you for almost half an hour now. So that's it. Thanks for watching.